Hello and hello. Thank you for joining me today on this controversial episode. To me, it's fascinating. I'm fascinated to watch this video. Hitler, Nazis, and World War II. How Germany deals with its dark past. Phew. That's pretty heavy. Yeah, it's just a fascinating topic that I don't think I've ever covered on this channel. Obviously, I already know going into it that Germany goes beyond just condemning Nazism. It's illegal to even display support for the Nazis and this kind of thing. So I already know that going into it. But I'm fascinated to watch.
Don't mention the war. That's a very well-known catchphrase from the British comedy series Fawlty Towers. The idea behind it is when you meet a German, the very first thing you think about will be the war, but you absolutely mustn't mention it.
First thing I think about is pretzels, but the war is up there.
So anyway, imagine my surprise when I was channel hopping on one of my first trips to Germany, and the war was everywhere. It felt like every day the television schedule was peppered with heavy Hitler documentaries and World War II films. That's how I came to appreciate for the first time that Germany as a whole doesn't ignore its dark past. But this...
Wow, right off the bat, already fascinating. Okay, so there's acknowledgement about that era everywhere on TV. Okay, amazing. Because that's one of the things, especially you compare it to, say, slavery here in the States. A big criticism that people always levy against the U.S. is you don't, in the public schools, you don't teach enough about slavery. So, yeah, interesting.
This wasn't always the case. For many years after the war, National Socialism was mostly a taboo topic among families. Parents and grandparents weren't asked uncomfortable questions about their involvement. Some films and books, like Günter Grass's The Tin Drum, began exploring the topic, but it was a spate of anti-Semitic vandalism in West Germany starting in 1959, which proved to be a wake-up call. A new focus was put on education, and by the time Germans of my generation were in school, the Holocaust and National Socialism were a firm feature on the curriculum. Many also began to ask questions about their own family's involvement.
That would be a hard question to ask, your own family's involvement.
Of course, it's hard or even impossible to compare the atrocities of the Holocaust with any other event. But I, for one, heard very little about my own country's darkest chapters during history lessons or in public discussion. So for an outsider, it can be quite remarkable to see this painful history raked over so often and so publicly in Germany. An important motivation is fear of history repeating itself. Recent years have seen the re-entry of a far-right political party into parliament and several horrific murders by right-wing extremists. Permanent police presence at many of Germany's synagogues is reminder enough that the shadow of anti-Semitism remains. So, how relevant is Germany's history today, and how much responsibility do Germans still carry for it?
Wir Deutschen können nicht stolz sein auf unsere Geschichte.
Nur weil es so lange her ist und jetzt keine persönliche...
And that is sad, hearing her say that she can't be proud of her history, or we can't be proud of our history. That's sad. Because you can be proud of so much of your history, but that really puts a stain on it, I guess, in your guys' hearts.
Schuld mehr hat, glaube ich nicht, dass man jetzt einfach sagen kann, es war ja keiner.
Wir können nichts dafür, unsere Kinder nicht, unsere Enkel nicht. Also irgendwann müsste ja mal Schluss sein.
70, 80 Jahre danach zu sagen, wir tragen daran Schuld, fände ich viel zu groß. Aber ich glaube, wir tragen eine Verantwortung, das was irgendwo verhindern, dass sowas wieder passiert.
Wow, that was really wonderfully said. So, at this point, generations later, you can't say that you're guilty of what happened, but because of them, you're now responsible for Yeah, that's just really well said.
Wird in Deutschland genug, zu wenig oder zu viel darüber gesprochen?
Ach, man kann gar nicht genug darüber sprechen.
Manchmal denke man, es ist zu viel des Guten. Immer wieder, immer wieder, immer wieder.
Ich glaube, es ist immer in Deutschland ein totales Tabuthema. Ne?
Ich glaube, es wird viel gesprochen, aber die Aufmerksamkeitsspanne, die wird immer kleiner, um das Gesprochene auch zu bewerten.
Gerade wenn man von der Schule zum Beispiel nach Hause kam und sowas gelernt hat, hat man halt natürlich auch die Eltern gefragt oder die Großeltern.
Die Eltern, die noch aus der Zeit kamen, die wollten sich in gewisser Weise, auch wenn sie nichts damit zu tun hatten, distanzieren.
Was mich nur immer wieder erstaunt ist, dass diese Generation angeblich nicht davon wusste, was damals passiert ist.
Haben Sie manchmal Angst, dass sowas wieder passieren könnte?
Ja, durchaus, ja, habe ich.
Also es kann jederzeit wieder passieren.
It's crazy to think. I mean, in reality, it really wasn't that long ago. You know, I would think it could never happen again. At least not in, you know, a Western country. But I guess it could, because it really wasn't that long ago. And it happened.
Wir sind jetzt nicht weder klüger als
That's
die
true.
Menschen damals noch Gott sonst irgendwas.
But with the advent of the internet, I feel like the world being, you know, there's much more eyeballs on everything that's happening globally, and therefore much more outrage from the people on any kind of event, bad event. That's got to make it a lot harder for something like this to ever happen again, at least in like a free country.
Was?
Nein, keine Angst. Hier bei uns in Europa haben wir genug gelernt, der Erste und der Zweite Weltkrieg. Ich glaube nicht, dass das sowas kommt. Die Menschheit ist vernünftig geworden.
Mankind has come to its senses. I feel like that is like some kind of famous last words. Mankind has come to its senses. Next day, just nuclear bombs go off all around the world.
Hosting Meet the Germans has made me realise that the consequences of the Nazi era can be felt all over the place in Germany. Some things are obvious, like you don't come across very many Adolfs these days. But then the war and the Nazis
That would suck to have that. I'd be like, your parents would have to hate you.
also came
Sorry to any Adolfs out there.
up when I was researching episodes on things like hiking, films, fashion, all sorts of seemingly unrelated topics. This has had an unmistakable effect on national pride. You rarely see the German flag flying here, unless the World Cup is on. And there's no visible pride in the armed forces either. In fact, it seems the country's military is more often ridiculed than celebrated. That's not to say that most Germans are not proud of their country. Many are, but their patriotism is usually quiet and practical rather than loud and emotional.
Interesting. Americans, I feel like in America, that has been slowly shifting toward that as well. Just, it seems like everybody used to be very patriotic. Or maybe that was just because I kind of grew up around, you know, I was pretty young when 9/11 happened, and that sparked a lot of patriotism and a lot of just like, yeah, let's go get them. A lot of support for the armed forces and stuff. I know during Vietnam, it was a completely different story. Like, people were not supportive of the armed forces here in America. So I don't know. But these days, it's definitely, I feel like it's petering off some. But if there's no support for the armed forces, then why does anyone even join the military in Germany?
Germans are also among the most pro-EU Europeans. One of the organisation's founding purposes was, after all, to promote peace in Europe. Some reminders of the war are visible when walking around the streets too. Take this building, the Haus der Kunst or House of Art in Munich. It's a prominent example of Nazi architecture. So what do you do with something like this? Is it enough to take something tainted and do something good with it, or does it need to be removed? After years of discussion about various buildings like this one, the jury's still out.
Yeah, I guess you could go either way. Yeah, like, I don't know. You have a good point either way on whether you want to knock the whole thing down or keep it as a kind of a reminder or memorial. I don't know.
What about memorials to the victims of the Nazis?
Yeah, I guess a memorial, like a Nazi building, isn't a very good memorial, now that I think about it. But it is a reminder.
They can be found all over the place in Germany, often organised and financed by the local community. It wasn't until 2005 that the German government unveiled its first official memorial to Europe's murdered Jews. The haunting Holocaust Memorial in central Berlin has become one of the capital's most visited landmarks. 3 years later came the state's first memorial dedicated to homosexual victims, and in 2012, one for Roma and Sinti victims.
You don't think about homosexual victims very much, or at least I don't. I guess that sounds horrible, but you mostly just think about Jewish.
To homosexual victims, and in 2012, one for Roma.
And forgive me for being stupid. I'm American after all, so I get a pass, right? I don't know what Roma and Sinti is.
Sinti victims.
Just being honest.
One subtle yet striking part of the memorial culture in Germany are the Stolpersteine, or stumbling stones. These small brass squares.
Okay, so I did watch that one video by, what's his name? I love his videos. Anyway, he made a whole video about these. So I have covered that. I've learned about that.
Are inscribed with the names of victims of the Nazi
These are really cool.
regime and set into the pavement outside their last known address. The project was started in the 90s by German artist Gunter Demnig, and today there are more than 75,000 stumbling stones across.
But some people had issue with them being on the ground, so now they're like on the walls.
Across Germany and other countries. But even this is not without controversy. The city of Munich has actually banned the stones from being installed on public ground, after some people, including a prominent Jewish community leader, argued that it was disrespectful to commemorate victims with something on the ground that you can walk over. The city has instead opted for wall plaques like this one. But I want to bring it back to where we started. Comedy. Hitler and the Nazis have been satirised many times over. British silent movie star Charlie Chaplin kicked things off way back in 1940 with The Great Dictator. In 2019, New Zealand director Taika Waititi confidently poked fun at the Führer in Jojo Rabbit. But what about in Germany? Could you, for example, write a book imagining Hitler waking up in modern-day Berlin? How he might react to Angela Merkel and multiculturalism, how he might rise to fame, but this time as a TV star. Well, that's exactly what German
As a YouTuber.
author Timur Vermeersch did. His 2012 book ist wieder da, or in English, Look Who's Back, topped the bestsellers lists in Germany and was later made into a film.
Ich fand einfach den Widerspruch, die Fallhöhe so enorm. Beim Lesen von Mein Kampf generell dieses, auf der einen Seite haben wir den Typ, der sich für ein Genie hält, und auf der anderen Seite, von der ersten Seite an, lesen Sie, dass da einer um Anerkennung bettelt. Und diese Widersprüche geben eben eine sehr schöne Möglichkeit für Humor.
Haben manche Leute dann gesagt, dass sie zu weit gegangen sind?
Ja.
See, Germans have humor too.
Aber sie konnten es nicht wirklich begründen. Sehr häufig stößt man halt auf nicht viel mehr als ein antrainiertes Tabu, das aber nicht untermauert ist. Die Lesereaktionen waren sehr unterschiedlich. Die einen fanden das verstörend, wie man es in diesem Kopf so lange aushält. Und der Kopf ist ja nicht verändert worden. Das ist ja sehr, sehr original Hitler. Und andere sagten dann, hey, super, wie er der Merkel einen drauf gibt. Der sagt, was mal gesagt werden muss. Die haben nach sehr kurzer Zeit dann auch vergessen, wer da zu ihnen spricht. Der Leser ist mit dem Buch allein. Er hat die Möglichkeit zu sagen, das ist zu viel, so nicht. Da hören wir jetzt mal auf. Aber er macht's nicht, weil es so schön witzig ist.
Now,
Have you guys read that book?
it's time for you to have your say. What do you think about how Germany deals with its past? And
I mean, it seems very noble from my point of view. A lot of acknowledgement, memorials, and all sorts of stuff to do what they can to make sure it doesn't ever happen again. So that's I guess that's what all you can really do.
have you got any other questions? Let me know in the comments.
Curious to see a couple comments. I don't really care what an American has to say. The young guy said it best. We're not to blame, but we have a responsibility, and that won't ever go away. Everyone, don't talk about the war. Germans, don't joke about the war. Is that a thing? Just don't. Well, that guy read a whole book of joking about the war. I went to Germany in 2016 and visited the memorial to the murdered Jews in Berlin, and I was very impressed by how Germany embraces its dark past. I have never seen a memorial that is more personal than the one in Berlin. I felt that this is some form of humility, and I've admired the Germans for it. I've loved Germany since then. How Germany deals with its dark past. Japan. Wait, you guys talk about it? That's most other countries, I feel like. All right. Well. Interesting. Very fascinating topic today. Thank you to DW Euromax for always coming through with a fantastic video. That was really great. I hope I didn't say anything like offensive or anything. I don't know. Sorry if I did. Have a great day. I hope to see you again tomorrow. I love Germany, personally. And goodbye.